In this video, we're going to be covering the sweep command. Now, the sweep command is similar to the loft command in the sense that it creates complex curved surfaces, but it goes about it in a slightly different way. Now, the sweep command might sound familiar because we used it in the past to create the handrail when creating the stairs. We've also used the sweep command in creating the window frames, right? We created the profile and then we used the rectangle and we went around to create the window frames. And that's the gist of using the sweep command. However, I want to, those ways are a bit more rigid, and I want to cover how to use the sweep command in a much more fluid, fun, creative way to create much more complex geometry. Okay, so really quickly, we'll we'll kind of start off with maybe where we left off with the handrail. So I'm going to go ahead and create the circle here. I'm going to go ahead and find the center point there, and let's just create some shape there. Okay. So there's two sweep commands. If we type in sweep, you'll see the sweep one and sweep two. So we're going to cover both of them. Right now it's sweep one. And so the sweep one is essentially saying we're going to take this shape and sweep it, move it along this rail. Think of the rail as a pathway, right? Or along this path. This is the rail. So it's asking me to select the rail. So I'll select this as the rail and then select the shapes. Now notice here it says plural. It's shapes, so more than one. So we can do multiple shapes, and similar to the loft command, it will loft those shapes together along this rail. So I'll go ahead and click, but for right now we just have that one shape. So I'll select this, hit enter, and we hit OK, right? And here is our shape, or the formwork. It's essentially the shape that is swept along that rail, right? But what happens if we, I don't know, change this shape? And I'm not sure. Here, let's just leave it like that. And let's come over here. Let's draw another circle up at the top. And something like that. So we'll do the same command, sweep one. We'll select this rail. This time we'll select shapes, multiple. So we'll select this one, and we'll hit OK, enter, and there we go. So now this shape kind of morphed, lofted into this circle along this rail. So if I go to the display panel settings, if I turn off ISO curves, we can get a better sense of the actual form we just created. And that seems pretty interesting. So we've got a pretty interesting form just by simply using the sweep one command. Okay. Now you might ask, well, what's the difference between the sweep one and the loft? This looks kind of like a loft. Well, they're similar in the sense that they lofted the shapes together. They're different in the sense that in this one they followed the rail, whereas a loft would just try to loft this shape and this one together, right? Without the rail or not along the path. So let's go ahead and loft these two. And that's what we get, right? So it's trying to merge these two shapes together directly, not along this path. Okay. So that's how we would use, that's the idea behind the sweep one rail. Now, the way I would go, or, one way that you could use the sweep one command in maybe creating a building form, we could go ahead and just, I don't know, create maybe a building perimeter. Okay. And we will create a shape, a profile. Right. We'll start there. and maybe something like that. Right? Oh, we might crash. That might be a little bit too big, but we'll leave it. We'll see what happens. Sweep one, click there, and there we have it. Right? And so now we have this essentially kind of a building form, right? This could be like a, I don't know, like a stadium. Um, we turn the ASO curves back on. And from here, we should just be able to select the surface and then offset the surface. And just like that, we have ourselves, you know, a building or the perimeter of a building. Okay. So that's how you can use the sweep one command. Um, you know, the possibilities are endless. You just have to be creative on how to use those two or how to use that command. Now, the sweep to command is similar in the sense that it's taking a profile and running it along a rail, except that the sweep to command is going to run along two rails. Okay. So for this, let's go into the top view. I'm gonna, I don't know, let's create one side's gonna be something like that. Well, whatever, let's leave it. Um, and the other side will be similar, but it'll be using curves. So on one side is more of a polygon, the other side is more of a curve. And then we'll go ahead and create a shape in between. Move this just so I can kind of get an idea of the height. And oops. Oh, this is not making. Let's go back. And let's come down. Let's try to get perpendicular right there. Okay. So now these two are touching there. Now, now I have this shape. So what's going to happen is that it's going to move this shape. It's going to move this shape along these two rails. So it's going to take the left side here and it's going to move it along this shape. It's going to do the right side, move it along this shape, and the in between is going to kind of transform and kind of try to hold everything together. Okay, so let's go ahead and sweep two. It's asking me to select my rail, so select the first rail, this one, this one. How you select the rails doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter in which order. It's just saying select the two, and then select the shapes. So I'll select this one, hit OK. We're not going to rebuild, so let's just leave it as the cross sections, and let's deselect maintain height. Okay, we'll hit OK, and this is what we get. Right now, this is a pretty it's a pretty complex form, right? The way it's kind of bulging out, but nonetheless, it's pretty interesting. So this is how we use the sweep to. Let's go ahead and take this and move it around. Now I want to play around a little bit with the other settings. Let's go ahead and do the sweep to. We'll select the first rail, select the second rail, okay, hit enter. And this time I want to select maintain height. And what maintain height is going to do is going to try to maintain the overall height from the original profile. Here, what it did when we deselected it, when you deselect maintain height, it's essentially, adjusting the right side and expanding it and making it smaller and larger depending on the curve that it's following, the same with the left side. And then the in-between space is expanding, it's getting larger or getting smaller as the curve gets smaller, right? So the height is adjusted based on, or the height is determined based on how the shape is adjusting to the rails, which is different when we select maintain height. Okay. It's also trying to maintain the overall height that we've specified in the profile. Okay. So here, by selecting maintain height, we get a different form. And the maintain height actually tends to make the form a lot cleaner, right? It's not as exuberant as this one is. Okay, so again, depending on what you're looking for, this one might be more ideal unless you want something a bit more crazy than that. Now, the other thing we can do, let's go ahead and sweep to. We'll select this rail and this one and then this. We can maintain height and then we can also select rebuild. Okay. Um, and we could adjust the settings, right? Just like with the loft, we could say rebuild it to 10. Okay, and it does smooth it out. In this situation, I might go to rebuild to 5 because it's going to really smooth it out. We'll hit OK. It's really going to smooth it out quite a bit. It also makes the geometry a lot cleaner. Okay, if we begin to take a look at how these iso curves, these lines, are divided up, it's smoother, it's cleaner in this one. And the form itself is a lot cleaner. Now with this, I can go ahead and ideally take this and offset surface. Okay. And we'll go ahead and leave the arrows. If we wanted to offset inward, we would hit flip, right? But I'm going to hit flip all. Typically, when I'm offsetting surfaces, I try to flip to the exterior instead of to the interior because it's a lot easier for a surface to grow out and get larger because you have all of the space. When you go inward, it's already making these tight curves even tighter, right? We'll hit enter. And there we have, let's go and take the iso curves off. And there we have our form. So curve, let's turn these back on. Here we have the form with a thickness, right? Now you'll notice that this, occasionally, not occasionally, with complex curves like this, we will we'll run into some of these issues, right? And essentially what's going on here is that the geometry is kind of crashing into itself. We could actually probably see it here. You see how we have these two kind of lines crashing right there? And that's just the way that the geometry was built. If you remember in the loft, or if you go back to the loft tutorial where I use those rectangles and rotate them, on that last example, they begin to kind of crash into themselves. The surfaces begin to crash into themselves, and that's exactly what's happening here. It's kind of probably this side is creating a surface to this side on the opposite end, and then vice versa. This side's creating a surface on this side. And so what you're seeing here is the two mesh. So this can easily be fixed just by manipulating the curves again, and playing around with it a little bit more. Right now, we just generated this really quickly, but I'm sure if we could take, for example, let's go back, let's undo this. We could probably clean this up. We could use the command dupe edge, which is going to duplicate each, edge that we want. So let's say this one, this one, this one, and this one. We could hit enter and then just move these off to the side. All right. And so now we can go ahead and adjust these as needed and smooth out the points if we wanted to. All right. And at this point, you could also actually just loft them if this is what you wanted. Right? And because we use those points, the form itself is going to come out and look very similar. But take a look at the geometry already. I mean, this is a much cleaner geometry than this is. And so if we were to use the offset command, offset surface, select this, let's offset outward, hit enter. There you go. All right. This is a much cleaner geometry than this one was. And we don't run into any of those issues. Okay. Now, and I'm kind of going a little bit off track, but this does become an issue with whenever we do offset surfaces. You guys see this, how it goes down. Typically, depending on how I'm drawing or what it is I'm drawing, right? I talked about offsetting outward instead of inward. When we offset outward, the form dips down, right? Like it ends at an angle down this way. When we offset inward, it does the opposite, it goes up. Now, what I would do in this situation, and if this is, with a little bit more time, I would have drawn this profile to go a little bit farther down past the C-plane, past this red line. So it'd come down about a foot. The same thing over here, bring that point down just about a foot. And that is just so that I could Boolean difference any leftover. So let me show you what I mean by that. I can go ahead and let's take this, let's extrude curve here, and let's just bring it down a foot. Right. And so because we offset it out, this piece is now going into the ground. If we were to offset in, then it would be floating up. And so then our floor would have to move up about a foot. That's why I would extend it past the C-plane down, knowing that I'm going to trim it afterwards. But in this case, because we offset it outward and the wall is going into the ground, all I have to do is select my Boolean difference, select this, hit enter, select the ground, hit enter. And now it's flattened it out, right? And now it's sitting flat to the ground. I could actually just bring the ground back, right? And now I have this form, right? Essentially a project in the span of 10 minutes. I probably could have done it a lot faster, um, really quickly, right? And this is what I mean when I say that this is, creating these types of form is where Rhino excels. This type of form work is almost impossible in, say, SketchUp or Revit. Um, but in Rhino, we can create it in, 10 minutes. So this is how we use the sweep one, sweep two command really quickly. Let's go ahead and move this off to the side. What happens, we could also, in this situation, we took this and we created one form or we created one shape. But if we were to create multiple forms, multiple shapes, and I'll go ahead and actually, let me go ahead and do that. I'll pause the recording so you're not sitting there watching me create these forms, but let me create two more shapes and then we could see how, see how we can use the sweep to command to merge all this, right? So really quickly, let's go ahead and create those shapes. So now I've created those shapes. What you will notice though is that they're not touching my rails. So if I look over here, you see that on this side, they're not actually touching. That line is not actually touching the rail. It's getting close to it. Okay. So that's the other thing to know is that your shape does not need to touch the rail. It's still going to follow this shape, even though it's not touching it. Okay. So now what we can do is we'll use the sweep to. We'll select the first rail, select the second rail, and then the shapes. And just like the loft, it's going to try to merge. Let's maintain height. Let's do not rebuild. We'll hit OK. It's going to try to merge a form that hits all of the lines or all of these actual shapes, right? So here's what we get. Okay. Now this differs from a loft because the sides, we're going to pay attention to the sides. They're not following, they're not having to follow these rails, right? So instead, a loft will only look at the curves that we give it. A rail will look at the curves and we designate the path in which those curves move. And so that affects the overall shape as well. Okay. So that's a kind of a deep dive into the sweep one and sweep two commands.